My mom called me at midnight and said, "Are you alone?" My name is Amaya Reynolds, and at 32 years old, I thought I knew everything about my life. That changed with a midnight phone call from my mom, her voice trembling. "Amaya, are you alone? Sit down. I need to tell you something." I braced myself for news of death, but what she said shattered my entire identity. I wasn't her daughter. I was her niece. 20 years of family photos suddenly felt like lies, and the mother I loved became a stranger with secrets that would unravel everything I believed about myself. Before I dive into this story, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever discovered a family secret that changed everything. Life in Chicago had been good to me. At 32, I had established myself as a graphic designer at Horizon Marketing, one of the city's top agencies. My loft apartment overlooked Lake Michigan, offering stunning views of the sunrise that inspired my creative work. I had built a reputation for bold, innovative designs that captured the essence of brands in ways that surprised even my most demanding clients. My mother, Sarah Reynolds, had always been my rock. A formidable woman who raised me single-handedly while building her own accounting firm, she embodied strength and resilience. We spoke almost daily, our Sunday brunches at Maple Street Cafe, a sacred tradition neither of us would dare break. She was the first person I called with good news, and the shoulder I cried on during my darkest moments. The memories of my childhood glowed with her presence. Sarah never missed a single school play, sitting front row and center with her camera ready. For my 10th birthday, she surprised me with a puppy named Scout, despite our apartment's no pet policy, somehow convincing the landlord to make an exception. When I graduated high school as valedictorian, she wept with pride, later confessing she had saved every report card since kindergarten in a special memory box. College was no different. Though I attended Northwestern University just outside the city, Sarah would send care packages filled with homemade cookies and inspirational notes before every major exam. When I walked across the stage to receive my degree in fine arts, her cheers echoed loudest in the auditorium. 3 years ago, I met James Donovan at a charity gala where I was volunteering. A pediatric surgeon with kind eyes and an infectious laugh, he approached me while I was arranging auction items. We bonded over our shared love of obscure indie films and Thai food, and after our first date, I knew he was special. Last month, during a weekend trip to Michigan's wine country, James proposed beneath a canopy of autumn leaves. The vintage emerald ring had belonged to his grandmother, and when I called Sarah with the news, she cried tears of joy. Wedding planning consumed our recent conversations. Sarah had thrown herself into the preparations with characteristic enthusiasm, researching venues and florists with military precision. We had already booked the Palmer House for next June, chosen a color scheme of sage green and gold, and started assembling the guest list. Yet something had shifted in Sarah over the past few weeks. I noticed it first during our venue tour, when the coordinator asked about family photos for the reception slideshow. Sarah's smile faltered momentarily before she recovered, suggesting we focus on more recent pictures. At home, I caught her poring over old photo albums with a strange expression I couldn't quite place. Then came the mysterious phone calls. Twice I had visited her home to find her ending conversations abruptly upon my arrival, her voice hushed and tense. When questioned, she dismissed my concerns with vague references to difficult clients or old friends reconnecting. The night before everything changed, we had a family dinner at Sarah's house. James and I brought wine and dessert, and Sarah prepared her famous lasagna. Throughout the meal, she seemed distracted, her laughter slightly forced. When the conversation turned to children, and I mentioned wanting to start a family soon after the wedding, Sarah's eyes welled with unexpected tears. "Mom, are you okay?" I had asked, concerned by her reaction. "Just happy for you, sweetheart," she replied quickly, dabbing her eyes with a napkin. "You'll be a wonderful mother." The comment lingered in my mind as James and I drove home that night. Sarah had always been emotional, but this felt different somehow. I made a mental note to check on her the following day, never suspecting that she would call me first, with news that would redefine everything I thought I knew about myself. My understanding of my family had always been straightforward. Sarah had married young, lost her husband Thomas in a car accident before I was born, and devoted herself to raising me alone. We had a small extended family with most relatives scattered across the country. Sarah's parents had passed away before I was old enough to remember them, and we rarely spoke about my father's side of the family. I had built my identity around being the daughter of an exceptionally strong single mother. Sarah's determination and self-reliance had shaped my own approach to life, instilling in me the belief that with enough hard work and perseverance, I could overcome any obstacle. Now, sitting in my apartment the night of the call, I was about to discover that the foundation of my identity rested on carefully constructed lies. My apartment was quiet that night, the space illuminated only by my desk lamp as I worked on a deadline project. Scout, now an elderly golden retriever, dozed at my feet as my fingers flew across the keyboard, making final adjustments to a brand presentation due the following morning. The wall clock showed 11:52 p.m. when my phone lit up with Sarah's name, sending a jolt of alarm through me. My mother never called this late unless something was seriously wrong. "Mom," I answered immediately, saving my work and standing up from my desk. "Is everything okay?" There was a pause, followed by the sound of Sarah taking a deep breath. "Amaya, are you alone?" My stomach tightened. "Yes, James is working the night shift. What's going on?" "I need you to sit down," she said, her voice uncharacteristically fragile. "There's something I have to tell you, and it can't wait any longer." "You're scaring me," I said, sinking onto my couch. "Are you sick?" "No, nothing like that," she assured me quickly. "But I need to talk to you in person. Can you come over right now?" The urgency in her tone left no room for refusal. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. The drive across Chicago at midnight was surreal. The city lights blurred as my mind raced through possibilities. Was she moving away? Had she discovered a family secret about my father? The radio played softly in the background, the late-night DJ's voice a distant murmur beneath my anxious thoughts. Sarah's house, a modest Victorian in Lincoln Park that she had purchased when I was 10, was fully lit when I arrived. I used my key to let myself in, calling out as I entered. "In the study," came her reply. I found her sitting at her desk, surrounded by stacks of old photographs and what appeared to be legal documents. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her usually impeccable appearance disheveled. On the desk before her lay an old yellowed envelope. "Mom, what's happening?" I asked, approaching cautiously. Sarah gestured to the chair across from her. "Please sit down." I complied, watching as she poured 2 glasses of bourbon, sliding one toward me. Sarah rarely drank anything stronger than wine. "There's no easy way to say this," she began, her fingers trembling around her glass. "But you deserve the truth. I should have told you years ago." She took a long breath, then met my eyes directly. "I'm not your biological mother, Amaya. Your mother was my younger sister, Lily." The words hit me like a physical blow. I stared at her, certain I had misheard. "What are you talking about? Lily got pregnant when she was 19. Sarah continued, her voice steadier now. "She was always wild, always rebelling against our parents. When she found out she was pregnant, she disappeared for months. No calls, no letters. Then one morning 32 years ago, I found you on my doorstep with nothing but a brief note from her." My head swam with confusion. "That's impossible. You've always told me my father died before I was born." "There was no father in the picture," Sarah said softly. "The man Lily was involved with never knew about the pregnancy. I created the story about Thomas to give you a sense of completeness, to answer questions before you could ask them. So you've been lying to me my entire life." The words came out sharper than I intended, but the shock was quickly turning to anger. Sarah reached for a folder and withdrew a faded piece of paper. "This is the note Lily left with you, and here's your original birth certificate." With shaking hands, I took the documents. The note was brief, written in hasty handwriting. "Sarah, I can't do this. Please take care of her. Her name is Amaya. I'm sorry. Love, Lily." The birth certificate listed Lily Reynolds as my mother, father unknown. "Why?" It was all I could manage to say through the tightness in my throat. "Why keep this from me for 32 years? Sarah's composure finally broke, tears streaming down her face. "At first, it was because I was trying to legally adopt you. I was afraid they might take you away and put you in foster care if they knew the circumstances. Then as years passed, it became harder to find the right moment. You were so happy, so secure. I was terrified of how the truth would hurt you." So you thought lying to me my entire life was better. I stood up, unable to remain seated. Who else knows about this? Just a few family members, Sarah admitted. My friend Barbara, no one you see regularly. I paced the small study, trying to process this revelation. So all those stories about your pregnancy, about my father Thomas, the photos of you in the hospital after I was born. The hospital photos are real, Sarah interjected. I was there when you were born. Lily called me when she went into labor. I drove her to the hospital, stayed through the delivery. She left the next day. The thought of my mother Sarah with the sister I never knew existed, holding me as a newborn, while my biological mother prepared to abandon me, was too much to comprehend. There's something else, Sarah said quietly, halting my pacing. Lily has made contact. After all these years, she wants to meet you. I froze, staring at this woman who had raised me, who had just shattered everything I thought I knew about myself with a few sentences. When? She called me last month. She's been sober for 15 years now. She has a family, a stable life in Seattle. The pieces suddenly clicked into place, the mysterious phone calls, Sarah's emotional reaction to wedding planning and talk of children, her preoccupation with old photographs. This is why you've been acting so strange, I said, the realization washing over me. You've been talking to her behind my back. I needed to be sure she was serious this time, Sarah explained. That she wouldn't disappear on you again. I grabbed my purse, overwhelmed by the need to escape. I can't do this right now. I need time to think. Amaya, please. Sarah stood, reaching for me. I know you're angry and you have every right to be, but everything I did out of love for you. I pulled away, already moving toward the door. Love doesn't lie for 32 years, Mom. Or should I call you Aunt Sarah now? The hurt that flashed across her face nearly stopped me, but the pain and betrayal churning inside propelled me forward. Without another word, I left the house, the sound of Sarah calling my name fading as I slammed the door behind me. The drive home passed in a blur. Tears obscured my vision as I navigated the familiar streets, now feeling strangely foreign. By the time I reached my apartment, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely unlock the door. Scout greeted me with concerned whines, sensing my distress. I collapsed onto the couch, mind reeling with implications. Who was I, if not Sarah Reynolds' daughter? What did this mean for all the stories I'd been told about my origins? How could the woman I trusted most in the world have maintained such a monumental deception for my entire life? I reached for my phone several times to call James, but stopped myself. How could I possibly explain this over the phone? What would I even say? Hey, guess what? I just found out I'm not who I thought I was for the past 32 years. Sleep was impossible. Instead, I pulled out every photo album I owned, spreading the pictures across my living room floor. Birthday parties, family vacations, school events, all featured Sarah and me smiling for the camera. I studied my own features in these images, searching for signs of the stranger who had given birth to me. Had I inherited my artistic talent from Lily rather than Sarah, as I'd always believed? Was my tendency toward perfectionism a trait from an unknown biological father? The night stretched endlessly as questions multiplied without answers. By dawn, I had called in sick to work, unable to face colleagues who knew me as someone I was no longer sure I was. Around noon, my doorbell rang. Sarah stood in the hallway holding a small wooden box. You weren't answering your phone, she said, her voice hoarse from what appeared to be a sleepless night. I was worried about you. Part of me wanted to shut the door in her face, but another part desperately needed answers. I stepped aside, allowing her to enter. I brought some things that might help explain, she said, placing the box on my coffee table. Photos of Lily letters she sent over the years. So she didn't completely disappear, I said, the betrayal feeling fresh again. You've been in contact with her all along. Sarah shook her head. Not consistently. She would surface occasionally, ask about you, then vanish again, usually when she hit rock bottom or started recovery. I sat across from her, maintaining distance. Tell me about her, my real mother. Sarah winced at the phrase but composed herself. Lily was brilliant, creative like you, with an eye for beauty in unexpected places. But she was also troubled. Our parents were strict, unforgiving. They never understood her artistic spirit. her need for freedom. So she got pregnant and dumped her baby on your doorstep, I said bitterly. It wasn't that simple, Sarah countered. Lily struggled with depression even as a teenager. The pregnancy triggered something worse. Postpartum depression, though no one called it that back then. She was self-medicating with alcohol, later drugs. She wasn't in a state to care for herself, let alone a baby. And my father, a college boyfriend. Gabriel, I think his name was. An art student. Lily never told him about the pregnancy. They had already broken up when she found out. I processed this information, trying to reconcile it with the story of my origins I'd always believed. Why didn't you just tell me I was adopted? Why create this elaborate fiction about being my birth mother? Sarah's eyes filled with tears. At first, it was easier to tell people I was your mother. The questions were simpler to answer. Then, as time passed, the lie became our reality. I loved you so fiercely, Amaya. From the moment I held you, you were mine. The thought of you feeling unwanted or abandoned was unbearable. So instead, you let me build my identity on a complete fabrication. I said, anger rising again. Do you have any idea what this does to me? I don't even know who I am anymore. You're still you, Sarah insisted. You're still the same talented, compassionate, determined woman you've always been. Your DNA doesn't change that. But my story does, I countered. The narrative I've told myself about where I came from, who I am, it's all been a lie. I opened the wooden box, finding photographs of a woman who looked startlingly like me, but with wilder eyes and a more carefree smile. The resemblance was undeniable, from the distinctive arch of our eyebrows to the slight asymmetry of our smiles. I couldn't sleep last night, I confessed, my voice breaking. I kept thinking about all the times I asked about my father, all the stories you told about your pregnancy. How could you look me in the eye and lie so convincingly? Because the alternative seemed worse, Sarah said softly. Telling you that your mother chose to leave you behind, that your father never even knew you existed. I wanted to protect you from that pain. That wasn't your decision to make, I said, standing to pace the room again. I had a right to know the truth about my own life. For the next week, I moved through my days like a ghost. I returned to work but struggled to focus. James noticed my distraction immediately upon his return from his hospital shift, and I finally broke down, telling him everything. To his credit, he listened without interruption, holding me as I cycled through anger, grief, and confusion. When I finished, he asked the question I had been avoiding. Are you going to meet her, your biological mother? I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants answers only she can provide. Another part feels like it would be betraying Sarah somehow. Sarah lied to you for 32 years, James pointed out gently. You don't owe her your loyalty in this situation. His words, though harsh, reflected my own thoughts. Over the next few days, I researched adoption trauma and identity issues, finding communities online of people who had discovered their biological origins late in life. Their stories resonated deeply, the sense of betrayal and the desperate search for authentic identity mirroring my own experience. Still, when Sarah called to ask if I had decided about meeting Lily, my initial answer was no. I need time, I told her. This isn't something I can just accept and move on from in a matter of days. The tension between Sarah and me grew steadily over the following 2 weeks. Our usual Sunday brunch tradition lapsed into awkward, stilted conversations, punctuated by long silences. Wedding planning, once a source of shared excitement, now felt trivial against the backdrop of this revelation. James, sensing my ongoing turmoil, suggested postponing some of the major wedding decisions. Maybe we should wait until you've had time to process all of this, he said one evening as we sat on our balcony. There's no rush. The proposal made sense, but it also fueled my resentment. Even my wedding day, something I had dreamed about for years, was now tainted by Sarah's deception. During a particularly difficult conversation, Sarah revealed more about Lily's troubled past. She was in and out of rehab for years, she explained. There were times when I wouldn't hear from her for 2 or 3 years. Then she'd call from some recovery center full of promises about getting better, wanting to see you. And you never thought I deserved to know about these calls? I asked incredulously. What good would it have done? Sarah countered. To tell a 10-year-old that her biological mother was in rehab again. To get your hopes up about meeting her only to have her disappear when the going got tough. Though I hated to admit it, there was some logic to Sarah's reasoning. Still, it didn't justify the complete erasure of Lily from my life story. I'm afraid she'll hurt you, Sarah confessed during another conversation. She's been stable for years now, but Lily has always been unpredictable. What if you form a relationship with her and she vanishes again? I'm not a child anymore, I reminded her. I can protect myself. As the days passed, I found myself drawn to items in my apartment that suddenly took on new significance. A sketchbook from high school contained drawings that Sarah had always praised as reminiscent of her own mother's artistic style. Now I wondered if this talent had actually come from Lily. A fondness for spicy food that Sarah never shared, but had attributed to my father Thomas, might instead be a trait inherited from my unknown biological father. The question of whether to meet Lily became more pressing when Sarah reluctantly admitted she had maintained minimal contact with her sister over the years. Christmas cards mostly, updates about you. She sent birthday gifts sometimes which I gave you saying they were from me or other relatives. The revelation that some of my cherished childhood possessions had actually come from my biological mother was yet another shock. Is there anything in my life that isn't built on lies? I asked, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. My love for you, Sarah answered simply. That has always been real. The ethical dilemma weighed heavily on me. Did I owe Lily anything? She had given birth to me, then abandoned me. Yet she was also half the source of my genetic makeup, a key to understanding aspects of myself that had always seemed disconnected from Sarah. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day at work, I confronted Sarah directly. You had no right to keep this from me. No right to decide I couldn't handle the truth. You're right, she acknowledged, surprising me with her candor. I was wrong to keep it from you for so long. I can see that now. But Amaya, please understand that every decision I made was out of love for you, misguided as it might have been. I joined an online support group for late discovery adoptees, finding solace in sharing experiences with others who understood the unique pain of having their identities rewritten in adulthood. Through their stories and encouragement, I gradually came to a decision. I'm going to meet her, I told James one night. I need to see her face to face to ask my own questions. When I informed Sarah of my decision, she nodded resignedly. I understand. Would you like me to be there with you? No, I said firmly. This is something I need to do alone. After a moment's consideration, I added, but James will be nearby just in case. We arranged to meet Lily at a quiet cafe in Wicker Park neutral territory that wouldn't be laden with memories for either of us. As the day approached, my anxiety grew. What would I say to the woman who had given me life then walked away? What could she possibly say that would make sense of her actions? The morning of the meeting dawned bright and clear, a beautiful fall day that belied the emotional storm brewing inside me. I changed outfits 3 times, unable to decide how to present myself to the mother who had never known me. Should I appear successful and put together, proving I had thrived despite her absence? Or should I dress casually as if this meeting were of little consequence? In the end, I chose a simple blue dress, a color Sarah always said brought out my eyes. James drove me to the cafe, squeezing my hand reassuringly before I got out of the car. I'll be at the bookstore across the street, he reminded me. Just call if you need me. I arrived 20 minutes early, securing a table in the corner with a view of the entrance. Each time the door opened, my heart raced only to sink back when an unfamiliar face appeared. I ordered a cappuccino but couldn't drink it, my stomach too knotted with anticipation. At exactly noon, the door opened again and I knew immediately. A woman in her early 50s paused at the entrance, scanning the cafe. The resemblance was uncanny, like looking at a preview of myself in 20 years. We had the same high cheekbones, the same slight frame, even the same way of tucking hair behind our ears, as she did now, spotting me across the room. Our eyes met, and for a moment, neither of us moved. Then she approached slowly, as if afraid I might flee. Amaya? Her voice was higher than Sarah's, with a slight raspiness. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. I'm Lily, she said unnecessarily. May I sit down? I gestured to the chair across from me, studying her face. My eyes, my nose, my hands all reflected back at me through a lens of 2 decades more life experience. You look so much like me, she said, breaking the awkward silence. More than I expected, even though Sarah sent photos over the years. She sent you photos? The revelation shouldn't have surprised me at this point, but it still stung. Christmas cards mostly, school photos, your college graduation. Lily looked down at her hands adorned with simple silver rings. I kept them all. The waitress approached and Lily ordered green tea. Once we were alone again, the weight of 32 years of absence hung between us. Why did you leave me? The question burst forth before I could frame it more delicately. Lily didn't flinch. The simple answer is that I wasn't fit to be a mother. I was barely 19, struggling with depression that I was self-medicating with alcohol. When I found out I was pregnant, I panicked. Gabriel, your father, had already moved to California for an art fellowship. We had broken up badly, and I couldn't bear to tell him. Did he ever know about me? I asked. No, she admitted. By the time I was thinking clearly enough to consider telling him, years had passed. He was married with children of his own. It seemed cruel to disrupt his life with a revelation like that. The waitress returned with Lily's tea, providing a momentary reprieve from the intensity of our conversation. The more complicated answer, Lily continued after taking a sip, is that after you were born, I experienced severe postpartum depression. No one recognized it for what it was back then. I couldn't connect with you emotionally. I couldn't stop crying. I was terrified I would hurt you somehow. So you left me on Sarah's doorstep instead, I said, unable to keep the edge from my voice. Sarah was the most responsible person I knew, Lily explained. She had already bought her first condo, had a stable job. I knew she would take care of you properly. She paused, meeting my eyes directly. What I didn't anticipate was how completely she would erase me from your life. The comment sparked my defensiveness. She was protecting me from knowing my mother didn't want me. Is that what she told you? Lily asked softly. That I didn't want you. She said you couldn't take care of me, I clarified. That you were troubled. Lily nodded slowly. That's fair. I was troubled. But Amaya, I never stopped thinking about you. When I got sober the first time when you were about 5, I wanted to be part of your life. Sarah convinced me it would be too confusing for you. The revelation shifted something in my understanding of the situation. So you tried to come back? Several times, Lily confirmed. But Sarah had legally adopted you by then. She had built a life with you as her daughter, and I kept relapsing, proving her right about my instability. She reached into her purse and withdrew a small photo album. I brought these if you want to see. Curiosity overcoming my reservations, I accepted the album. Inside were photos of a family, Lily with a tall bearded man, 2 teenage boys, a dog. A normal, happy-looking family. My husband, David, Lily explained, pointing to the man. We've been married for 17 years, and your half-brothers Ethan and Noah. They're 16 and 14. I stared at the boys, searching for resemblances. The younger one had my chin, the older my eyes. Brothers I had never known existed. They know about you, Lily said. They've always known they had a half-sister. They're excited about the possibility of meeting you someday, but I told them that would be entirely up to you. The thought of having siblings after a lifetime as an only child was overwhelming. What do they know about why I didn't grow up with you? The truth, Lily said simply. That I was very sick when you were born, that I made a difficult decision to ensure you had a stable home, and that your aunt raised you as her own daughter. And your husband. David met me in recovery. He knows everything about my past, the good and the bad. I took a sip of my now cold cappuccino, buying time to process this information. What about my biological father, Gabriel? Lily's expression softened. He was an art student at Northwestern. Talented, idealistic. We dated for about a year before he received the fellowship in California. The relationship couldn't survive the distance. Do I look like him? It was a question I had never been able to ask about my fictional father, Thomas. You have his hands. Lily said, glancing at my fingers wrapped around the coffee cup. Artist's hands long and nimble, and his focus when you're concentrating on something. Sarah sent me a photo of you working on an art project once. The intensity in your expression was pure Gabriel. The conversation had remained relatively calm until this point, but suddenly, anger welled up inside me. How could you just leave me a note? That's all I was worth. Lily's composure cracked slightly. I was in a terrible place, Amaya. I had no money, no stable home, and I was drinking daily just to numb the pain. I genuinely believed you would be better off without me. And later, when you got sober, when you had this perfect new family, the bitterness in my voice surprised even me. I tried, Lily said, a flash of her own anger showing through. Sarah has a way of making you believe her perspective is the only rational one. She convinced me that disrupting your life would be selfish, that you were thriving without me. So you just gave up. I sent birthday gifts, letters that Sarah probably never showed you. I called on holidays when I could work up the courage only to be told you were too busy to come to the phone. After a while, yes, I accepted the boundaries Sarah established. I focused on staying sober, on being the best mother I could be to the children in my home. Her words stung, but also rang with a truth I couldn't deny. Sarah was masterful at establishing her viewpoint as the only reasonable one. I got sober for you, Lily added quietly. The final time, the one that stuck. I was in rehab on your 16th birthday, and I made a promise to myself that I would get well enough to meet you someday, even if you hated me for what I'd done. I don't hate you, I said, surprising myself with the realization. I don't even know you. Would you like to? Lily asked, hope evident in her voice. Get to know me, I mean, and your brothers eventually, if you're comfortable with that. The question hung between us, fraught with implications. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from James. Everything okay? I need to think about all this, I said, gathering my purse. This is a lot to process. Lily nodded, disappointment visible but accepting. I understand. Take all the time you need. I'm staying in Chicago for another week at the Marriott downtown. Here's my number and my email. She wrote both on a napkin, sliding it across the table. I'm also open to video calls after I return to Seattle. I took the napkin, folding it carefully into my wallet. I can't promise anything right now. I know, she said gently. I've waited 32 years, Amaya. I can wait longer if that's what you need. As I stood to leave, an impulsive question escaped me. Were you ever going to tell me the truth? If Lily hadn't contacted you now, would you have ever told me? Her silence was answer enough. With a nod of acknowledgement, I turned and walked out of the cafe, emotions too tangled to name swirling inside me. James was waiting at the bookstore, as promised, concern evident in his expression as I approached. How did it go? I need to talk to Sarah. I said, my voice steadier than I expected. Now. The drive to Sarah's house was tense, James wisely remaining silent as I processed the revelations from my meeting with Lily. By the time we arrived, my confusion had crystallized into a focused anger. Sarah opened the door before I could knock, clearly having been watching for my arrival. How was it? She asked anxiously. I brushed past her into the house, turning to face her in the living room. Lily says she tried to be part of my life multiple times, that you convinced her to stay away. Sarah's expression tightened. She was unstable, Amaya, in and out of rehab. How could I expose you to that kind of uncertainty? That wasn't your decision to make, I countered. You should have told me the truth when I was old enough to understand. Let me decide for myself if I wanted a relationship with her. I was protecting you, Sarah insisted. Every time Lily showed up, it was the same pattern. Grand promises about being involved in your life, then disappearing again when things got difficult. So you decided lying to me for my entire life was the better option, I demanded. Creating this elaborate fiction about being my birth mother. Sarah sank onto the couch, suddenly looking much older than her 57 years. I was going to tell you when you turned 18, she admitted. I had it all planned out. But then you got that scholarship to Northwestern. You were so happy, so focused on your future. It never seemed like the right time to upend your world. The confession only fueled my anger. So you had opportunities to tell me the truth and you chose not to. Again and again and again. James placed a gentle hand on my shoulder, reminding me of his presence. Maybe I should give you two some privacy, he suggested. No, I said firmly. Stay, please. He nodded, moving to sit in an armchair present, but allowing us space for this necessary confrontation. Lily showed me pictures of her family. I continued, turning back to Sarah. I have two half-brothers I never knew existed. She's been married for 17 years to a man who knows all about me. She's been sober for 15 years, Sarah. She got her life together. I know, Sarah acknowledged. She told me all this when she called last month. And you still didn't think I deserved to know that maybe having siblings might be something important to me? Sarah looked away, unable to meet my gaze. I was afraid of losing you, she whispered. Afraid that if you met her, if you connected with her and her family, there wouldn't be room for me in your life anymore. The admission hung in the air between us, raw and honest, in a way our conversations had rarely been. So this was about your fears, not my well-being. I said, the realization clarifying much of Sarah's behavior over the years. Before she could respond, I remembered something Lily had mentioned. Lily said something about birthday gifts and letters. What was she talking about? Sarah's discomfort was immediate and visible. She rose and walked to the hallway closet, returning with a shoebox. These came over the years, she said, placing it on the coffee table. Inside were cards and small packages, some still unopened, dating back to my childhood. Birthday cards signed, "With love from your mother Lily." Christmas gifts with tags in unfamiliar handwriting. A handmade bracelet with a note explaining it matched one Lily wore daily, so we can be connected even when apart. The evidence of Lily's attempts to maintain some connection with me, however distant, was overwhelming. I lifted a card from my 16th birthday, reading the message inside. I think of you every day, wondering what kind of young woman you're becoming. I hope someday you can find it in your heart to let me know you. All my love, always. How could you keep these from me? I asked, tears finally breaking through my anger. I thought I was sparing you the confusion, the pain of having a mother who drifted in and out of your life. Sarah explained, her own eyes wet. Maybe I was wrong. Probably I was wrong. But I loved you so completely, Amaya. The thought of sharing you, of possibly losing you to her if she ever got stable enough to fight for custody, it terrified me. The mention of custody triggered a memory of something Lily had said. Lily mentioned you had legally adopted me. When did that happen? Sarah hesitated, then sighed deeply. When you were 4. Lily had been sober for about 6 months. She came to me saying she wanted to be part of your life. I panicked. You were calling me mommy. You were settled and happy. I couldn't bear the thought of confusing you, of potentially losing you if she relapsed again. So what did you do? I pressed, sensing there was more to this story. I consulted a lawyer, Sarah admitted. He advised that given Lily's history of substance abuse and the fact that she had abandoned you, I could easily petition for full adoption. I told Lily that if she tried to reclaim you, I would be forced to expose her history in court, which would damage her chances at maintaining her recovery. The calculated manipulation shocked me. You threatened her. I was protecting our family, Sarah insisted, though her voice lacked conviction. You weren't protecting me, I said, standing up and backing away from her. You were protecting yourself, your relationship with me, your role as my mother. Amaya, please. Sarah reached for me, but I stepped further away. I need to verify this, I said, pulling out my phone. I'm going to call Barbara. She knows the truth, right? Sarah nodded reluctantly. Yes, she was there through everything. Barbara had been Sarah's best friend for as long as I could remember, a surrogate aunt who had attended every important event in my life. I dialed her number, putting the call on speaker. Amaya, honey, Barbara answered warmly. How are you holding up? Sarah told me everything's out in the open now. Not everything, I said tersely. Did my biological mother try to reclaim me when I was young? Did Sarah threaten her with legal action? The silence on the line was confirmation enough, but Barbara eventually spoke. Yes. Lily had been sober for almost a year when you were about 4. She wanted to establish visitation rights, maybe work toward shared custody. Sarah was determined to prevent that. And you supported her. I couldn't keep the accusation from my voice. I thought she was doing what was best for you, Barbara said defensively. Lily had been so unstable, and you were so attached to Sarah. Thank you for being honest, I said, ending the call before emotion overwhelmed me. I turned to Sarah, seeing her now through new eyes. You didn't just hide my mother from me, I said quietly. You actively kept her from me. You manipulated her, threatened her. I was wrong, Sarah admitted, tears streaming down her face. I see that now. But Amaya, please believe that I thought I was protecting you from more pain, more instability. I can't do this right now, I said, gathering my purse. I need space to think. James stood, placing a supportive arm around my shoulders. We should go, he said gently. Amaya, don't leave like this, Sarah pleaded. Let's talk this through. There's nothing more to say right now, I told her. You've had 32 years to talk. I need time to process all of this without you trying to control the narrative. As we reached the door, Sarah called out one last time. I love you, Amaya. That has never been a lie. I paused but didn't turn around. I know. That's what makes this so hard. In the car, James suggested we go to his apartment instead of mine. You need a neutral space, he said wisely. Somewhere without memories. I agreed, too emotionally exhausted to argue. That night, as we lay in his bed, I made a decision. I need to move out of my apartment for a while. I can't be surrounded by all those photos, all those memories built on lies. Move in with me, James offered immediately, until you figure things out. The next morning, I called my friend Taylor, asking if she could keep Scout for a few weeks. Family emergency, I explained vaguely. Then I emailed my boss requesting 2 weeks of personal leave, citing a family crisis. The wedding plans, already tentative, were now officially on hold. I need to know who I am before I can promise myself to you, I explained to James, who nodded in understanding. Take all the time you need, he assured me. I'm not going anywhere. Over the next week, I slowly packed essential items from my apartment, leaving behind most of the photographs and mementos that now felt tainted by deception. I moved temporarily into James's spacious loft, grateful for his patient support, as I cycled through anger, grief, and confusion. Sarah called daily, her voicemails growing increasingly desperate. I listened to each one, but couldn't bring myself to respond. Lily, by contrast, sent a single text. I'm here when you're ready. No pressure. The contrast between their approaches was telling. 3 months passed. Winter settled over Chicago, transforming the city with snow that muted the usual urban clamor. In that quiet, I began the slow process of rebuilding my sense of self. Therapy became a lifeline, twice-weekly sessions with Dr. Martinez, who specialized in adoption trauma and identity issues. What you're experiencing is normal, she assured me during our first meeting. The late discovery adoptee often goes through a period of identity disintegration before reconstruction can begin. Those words gave structure to the chaos I felt internally. Through her guidance, I began to separate the core of who I was from the narrative I had been told about my origins. Your talents, your values, your personality, these are authentically yours, Dr. Martinez explained. They exist independently of who raised you or the story you were told about your birth. Slowly, I reestablished contact with Sarah, meeting for coffee in neutral locations. Our conversations were stilted at first, painful in their careful navigation around 3 decades of deception. I've been seeing a therapist too, Sarah told me during one such meeting. She's helping me understand how my fear of losing you led to choices that ultimately damaged our relationship. I'm glad, I said, surprised by the sincerity in my voice. I want to understand why you did what you did, even if I can't condone it. I don't expect you to forgive me, Sarah said, reaching across the table but stopping short of touching my hand. But I hope someday we can build something new, something based on truth this time. I nodded, not ready to offer more but no longer consumed by anger when in her presence. With Lily, I proceeded more cautiously. After she returned to Seattle, we established a routine of weekly video calls, gradually learning about each other's lives. She never pushed for more than I was willing to give, respecting the boundaries I established. "I don't expect to replace Sarah," she said during one call. "She raised you, loved you, shaped you into the amazing woman you are. I'm just grateful for the chance to know you now." Her humility made it easier to open myself to the possibility of a relationship with her. Through her, I learned more about my biological father, Gabriel, now a moderately successful artist living in New Mexico with his family. Lily offered to facilitate contact if I wished, but I declined, not ready for another complex relationship. Instead, I focused on getting to know my half-brothers through video calls, finding unexpected joy in their teenage energy and the clear physical resemblances between us. Ethan shared my artistic inclinations, while Noah had inherited my analytical mind and dry humor. By spring, I felt steady enough to arrange a meeting with both Sarah and Lily. The gathering took place at James's apartment, neutral territory, for this unprecedented family reunion. The tension was palpable as the two sisters faced each other for the first time in decades. Lily thin and nervous in a floral dress, Sarah composed but wary in her characteristic tailored slacks and blouse. "Thank you for coming," I said, taking charge of the awkward situation. "I know this isn't easy for either of you, but it's important to me." We sat in James's living room, the large windows overlooking the lake, providing a calming backdrop to our difficult conversation. "I've spent months trying to make sense of what happened," I began. "And I've realized that while I may never fully understand or agree with the choices each of you made, I don't want to lose either of you from my life." Sarah's eyes filled with tears, while Lily nodded, her expression a mixture of hope and resignation. "I'm not asking you to be friends," I continued, "but I am asking for civility for my sake. I want to move forward without having to compartmentalize my relationships with each of you." "I can do that," Lily said immediately. Sarah hesitated longer but eventually nodded. "If that's what you want, Amaya." "It is," I confirmed. "And I want both of you to understand something. I'm still figuring out what these relationships look like now. I need patience from both of you as I work through that." The meeting was brief but significant, establishing a framework for how we would navigate this new reality. As they left separately, I felt a weight lift that I hadn't realized I'd been carrying. A month later, I finally met my half-brothers in person when Lily's family visited Chicago. The gathering was awkward at first, but eventually warmed as we discovered shared interests and mannerisms. "You do the same thing with your hands when you talk," Noah pointed out, mimicking a gesture I hadn't noticed in myself. "Mom does it too." These small connections helped anchor me in my expanding sense of family and identity. By summer, James and I had rescheduled our wedding for the following spring. I moved back into my apartment, redecorating to reflect my evolving sense of self. The old family photos were stored away, replaced by new images that acknowledged the complexity of my history. A recent picture of Sarah and me at the Art Institute. A group shot with Lily and her family. Candid photos with James that pointed toward our future together. The most difficult part of rebuilding was addressing the anger I still felt toward Sarah for her decades of deception. During a particularly honest therapy session, Dr. Martinez suggested writing letters to both mothers expressing the complex emotions I couldn't always articulate in person. The exercise proved cathartic. To Sarah, I wrote of my love for her as the mother who raised me, coupled with my deep sense of betrayal at her lies. To Lily, I expressed my gradual understanding of the circumstances that led to her choices, while acknowledging the abandonment wound that might never fully heal. I never sent either letter, but the process of writing them clarified my feelings and helped me move toward forgiveness, not for their sake, but for my own peace. James remained my steadfast support throughout this journey, never pushing me to resolve things more quickly than I was able. "Family is complicated," he said one evening as we discussed wedding plans. "Look at my parents, divorced 3 times each, yet somehow all managing to be civil at holidays. We'll figure out our own version of family." His perspective helped me see beyond the binary thinking that had initially dominated my reaction to the revelation. Family wasn't just biological or legal. It was created through choices, commitment, and love, however imperfect. As wedding preparations resumed, I made a decision that surprised everyone, including myself. I asked both Sarah and Lily to walk me down the aisle. "Are you sure?" Sarah asked when I proposed the idea, clearly afraid to hope for such a significant role. I'm sure, I confirmed. You raised me, Sarah. That doesn't change because I now know the truth. And Lily gave me life. I want to acknowledge both of you on this day that's about creating a new family of my own. The wedding planning became an unexpected vehicle for healing, requiring practical cooperation between the two women who had shaped my existence in such different ways. Watching them negotiate seating arrangements and ceremony details, I glimpsed the possibility of a future where my complex family could coexist, if not as one unit, then at least in peaceful recognition of our shared connections. The culmination came on a perfect spring day as I stood between Sarah and Lily at the back of the Palmer House ballroom, about to walk toward James and our future together. Ready? Sarah asked, her voice thick with emotion. We're so proud of you, Lily added, squeezing my hand. In that moment, surrounded by the complicated love of two mothers, and about to join my life with the man who had stood by me through the most challenging period of my adult life, I felt a sense of wholeness I had feared might never return after the midnight phone call that had shattered my identity. The path forward wasn't perfect. There would still be awkward holidays, complex emotions, and occasionally reopened wounds. But as we moved down the aisle, I understood that the foundation of my identity was stronger for having been rebuilt with truth, however painful that process had been. 2 weeks after the wedding, James and I hosted a dinner at our new home, inviting Sarah and Lily to join us. The conversation flowed more easily than I had anticipated, the shared meal becoming a metaphor for the nourishment that truth, however belated, had brought to our lives. To family, James proposed a toast, raising his glass, in all its beautiful, messy complexity. As we clinked glasses, I looked at the faces around the table, marveling at how my understanding of family had expanded and deepened through this journey. Sarah caught my eye and smiled tentatively, the guilt she still carried visible beneath her happiness. Lily watched us with quiet gratitude, never taking for granted her place at this table. To truth, I added to the toast, and to the freedom it brings even when it hurts. Later that night, as James and I prepared for bed, he asked if I had any regrets about how I had handled the revelation of my true parentage. Only that it took so long to get here, I replied honestly. But I've learned something important through all of this. Families are built more on love than on blood, but truth is the foundation that makes that love endure. Without honesty, even the strongest love becomes a beautiful house built on sand. Has your family ever kept a secret from you that changed everything when you discovered it? Or have you struggled with forgiveness after a deep betrayal? Let me know in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories of family secrets and the healing that can come from confronting them. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that sometimes the most painful truths lead to the most authentic versions of ourselves.